They are among the most secretive beings in all of Middle-earth. Not because they shun the world, on the contrary, they walk among it with iron boots and a merchant's wit, but because deep beneath their stone halls they have nurtured a legacy wrapped not in song or story, but in silence. The dwarves are not like the elves, who sing their history to the stars, nor like men, who carve theirs onto crumbling parchments. No, what the dwarves know, they keep. What they name, they guard. What they love, they protect behind walls of stone and centuries of unspoken tradition. They traded with hobbits in quiet valleys, bartered with men in bustling markets, and stood beside elves in desperate battles. Yet even in friendship, there was always a line, unseen but unbroken, a line they never allowed others to cross. There were things they would not share, not with kings, nor wizards, not even with allies who would die beside them in war. Among these untouchable things were their true names, their women, and most of all, their language. To understand the dwarves, you must set aside everything you think you know about the peoples of Middle-earth. You must forget the flowing Elvish of Lothlorien and the broad speech of men. The dwarves speak something older, something crafted, not evolved. It is a language not born from culture, but from creation. It is called Khuzdul, and it was given to them by none other than Aulë the smith, the Valar who forged the seven fathers of the dwarves before the first elves even awoke. This origin is more than myth. It defines everything about how the dwarves treat their speech, because unlike the languages of elves or men, Khuzdul is not meant to spread or change. It is not fluid like water. It is fixed like carved stone. Few outside their kind have ever heard it spoken, and fewer still have learned even a fragment. It is a holy tongue, taught to every dwarf child, not just as a means of communication, but as a right of belonging. To speak Khuzdul is not merely to speak, it is to be dwarven. And so it remains, sealed within their mountain halls, carried in whispers through the deep places of the world. Even names like Gimli, Thorin, and Balin, names we associate with the great heroes of their kind, are not their true names, but Mannish ones. Whether they are translations or fabrications, we do not know. What we do know is that even their tombs, even their stone-hewn legacies, carry no trace of their true identities in Khuzdul. When the Fellowship finds the tomb of Balin in Moria, the inscription reads in both Common Tongue and Khuzdul, but only the name Balin Fundinul, not the name given to him in secret, not the name his mother whispered when he was born. To the dwarves, names are not for the world to know, and language is not for the world to hear. These things belong to them, and them alone, and it all begins with Khuzdul. Khuzdul was not born in the wild places of Arda, nor shaped by time, like the languages of men. It was crafted in full, complete, ancient, and deliberate by Aulë himself, long before the elves or men even opened their eyes to the stars. When the Valar shaped the world, Aulë, the great smith and builder, desired children of his own. And so he made the seven fathers of the dwarves in secret, breathing into them not only life, but speech. Unlike the ever-changing dialects of men or the flowing poetry of the elves, Khuzdul was made with the permanence of stone. It was not designed to evolve. It was not meant to spread. It was meant to endure, a sacred inheritance, passed from one generation to the next like the finest forged heirloom, unaltered, unbroken. Even after thousands of years and countless migrations, dwarves of different clans could still speak to each other fluently, their tongue preserved like fossilized amber. Tolkien himself described this resistance to change with a striking metaphor. The language of men, he said, melts like snow under a morning sun. Elvish changes like the growth of a tree, slow but living. But Khuzdul? Khuzdul weathers time like mountain rock. It does not shift. It does not drift. It holds. This unwavering nature made Khuzdul a kind of glue for Dwarvish identity. Even when different clans scattered across Beleriand, the Blue Mountains, or the far lands of Rhûn and Rhovanion, the language remained their lifeline to one another. It wasn't always the tongue they spoke in daily life. Many dwarves used the common tongue of men in trade or travel, but Khuzdul was the tongue they were born into, the one they returned to in moments of grief, prayer, and pride, and they guarded it fiercely. Few outside their race ever learned a single word, not because the dwarves feared others would misuse it, but because Khuzdul was never meant for outsiders at all. It was the soul of their people. To share it would be like opening one's heart and leaving it in a stranger's hands. Even the greatest minds of Middle-earth, the Elven lawmasters, the Istari, even Elrond, rarely glimpsed the structure of the language, let alone spoke it. But there was one exception, one among the firstborn, who by curiosity or fate crossed the barrier of silence. Curufin, son of Feanor. Among his many pursuits, Curufin showed a fascination not just for the crafts of the dwarves, but for their words. While most of his brothers fought in bitterness and pride, Curufin learned. He listened. He earned their respect in a way few elves ever had. And from him, the lawmasters of the Noldor gained what little we now know of Khuzdul, fragmented, partial, and still shrouded in mystery. Even then, it was never fully revealed. What Curufin knew, he likely never wrote down. And so, the silence remained. In the tongues of men, echoes of Khuzdul would eventually surface. Faint traces in the languages of the Edain, in Adunaic, even in Westron, the common speech. But these were whispers in a forest of voices. The true language, the one shaped by divine will and carried by stonemasons and kings alike, remained behind sealed doors. To speak Khuzdul was to declare, "I am of the mountain, and the mountain does not yield." In Middle-earth, names hold power. To the elves, a name is a melody, shaped by starlight and memory. To men, it is a legacy, passed from father to son, spoken proudly across generations. But for the dwarves, a name is something else entirely. It is not a badge, nor a boast. It is a secret. Their true names, spoken in Khuzdul, are never shared outside their own kind. Not with friends, not with kings, not even with those who saved their lives. A dwarf's name is bound to his soul, and only the dwarves themselves are allowed to hear it. What others know are merely surface names, names rendered in the tongues of men. Thorin, Gimli, Balin, Dain. None of these are their real names. Whether these are translations or mere aliases, Tolkien never tells us. And that silence speaks volumes. Even in death, the truth remains hidden. When the Fellowship entered the chamber of Mazarbul and stood before the tomb of Balin, Lord of Moria, they found his name inscribed twice, once in the common speech and once in the Dwarvish script, but both simply read, Balin Fundinul, Balin, son of Fundin. No hidden name revealed, no final truth laid bare. Because to the dwarves, even the grave is not a place for disclosure. What is spoken in life, what is whispered in Khuzdul, remains in the mountain, forever. It is not fear that drives this silence. It is reverence. A name is a gift from one's kin, a thread in a long and unbroken chain of ancestry. To speak it lightly would be to chip away at the foundation of their identity. That is why even their greatest heroes, those who fought dragons, reclaimed kingdoms, or died defending their people, remain partly unknown to the world. They are remembered not for who they were in secret, but for what they did in the light. There is only one known exception, Durin, the name of the eldest of the seven fathers. But even this name, we are told, is not Khuzdul. It is a Mannish word, meaning king. And so the mystery deepens. Did the dwarves ever speak Durin's true name aloud? Or was even that lost to time, carried only in the echoes of stone and fire? Ironically, the only true Khuzdul name we know for certain belongs not to a dwarf, but to their creator. Aulë, the divine smith, is known to the dwarves as Mahal, the maker, a title whispered with reverence, not because it is powerful, but because it is personal, because it is theirs. It is perhaps fitting that a people so skilled in stonecraft would treat names the same way they treat mountains, to be honored, not exposed, carved, not shared. And while most races of Middle-earth build their legacies from stories told and songs sung, the dwarves build theirs from what they choose to keep hidden. Because sometimes silence is not a void, it is a shield. If you're drawn to the mysteries of Middle-earth, to the spaces between words and the echoes beneath the surface, consider subscribing to the channel. We dive deeper into forgotten lore, one untold story at a time. If the true names of the dwarves were a secret, then their women were a legend. To most of Middle-earth, they were a rumor, spoken of in taverns and tales, but rarely, if ever, seen. Some men whispered that dwarves had no women at all, that they sprang from stone like roots from the mountain. Others said the women were too precious to leave their halls, hidden away in citadels carved beneath the earth. The truth, as always with the dwarves, lies somewhere deeper. According to Gimli, only 1/3 of their people are women, 1 in 3. And even among those, not all choose to marry. Some pursue their own crafts and callings. Others give their hearts only once, and if the match is not returned, they remain alone, their love sealed away like treasure in a vault. Dwarves do not take many spouses. They take one, and they do not marry again. In a world where other races flourish and multiply freely, the dwarves grow slowly, carefully. Every life is precious, every birth a celebration, and every loss a wound that echoes through generations. It's no wonder, then, that dwarven women are so rarely seen beyond their mountain homes. When they travel, it is only out of great need, and when they do, they go veiled in secrecy. They wear the same clothing as the men, speak with the same gruff tones, and perhaps most curious of all, they bear the same beards. It is said that even the elves could not tell a dwarf woman from her male kin. But to a dwarf, that's not a disguise. It's tradition, identity, protection. The resemblance is not a trick, it is a truth. They are warriors and smiths, matrons and miners, guardians of the flame and memory of their people. And yet, for all their strength, they remain unseen by the world above. In all of Tolkien's vast legendarium, only one dwarf woman is named, Dís, the sister of Thorin Oakenshield. We know her not for her own deeds, but for the valor of her sons, Fili and Kili, who perished at the Battle of the Five Armies. Through grief, her name endured. She became the exception, not the rule, the single voice of a silenced lineage. But make no mistake, her silence was not absence. It was the silence of watchful eyes and steady hands holding the line from behind the forge, behind the stone. To lose a dwarf woman is to lose not just a life, but a future. And so, like their language, like their names, they are kept close, protected by choice, not shame. They are the strength the world does not see, and perhaps that is why the world misunderstands them. While other races name rivers and valleys after kings, or let their languages drift with the wind. The dwarves carve their words into the land itself. To them, a name is more than a label. It is an anchor, a history, a mark of belonging. And nowhere is that more evident than in the names they give to places. Khazad-dûm, the greatest of their halls, the crown jewel of their civilization. Translated into the common tongue, it becomes Dwaro-delf, or more plainly, Dwarves' Mansion. But even that translation loses something vital: the rhythm, the weight. The resonance of Khuzdul cannot be replicated in other tongues. It echoes like hammerfall on stone. To speak a place's name in Khuzdul is to summon its soul. This language is not poetic like Elvish, nor descriptive like the speech of men. It is precise, compact, forged like a blade with purpose and finality. When the Fellowship discovers the Chamber of Mazarbul, the Chamber of Records, they're not merely stepping into a room, they are walking into memory, into the place where names were kept, where oaths were recorded, where the lineage of stone met ink and will. Every name given in Khuzdul bears the gravity of permanence. Azanulbizar, Dimril Dale to outsiders, is one such name. A battlefield, a graveyard, a memory chiseled into the bones of the mountain. Or Barazinbar, Redhorn, the Dwarvish name for Caradhras, that cruel, snow-covered peak whose heart has never thawed. These names are not decorative, they are declarations. Even places outside their control were not beyond their naming. To the dwarves, the glassy lake at the Dimril Stair was Kheled-zâram, the mirror pool. There, Durin the Deathless once looked into the water and saw a crown of stars upon his head, a sign, they believed, that his line would endure forever. To name such a place in Khuzdul was to bind it to memory, to mark it as sacred. Even lands steeped in shadow did not escape their tongue. Mordor, the dark country feared by all, was known to the dwarves as Nargon, a name heavy with finality, the kind that closes doors more than it opens them. And the orcs, the twisted spawn of hatred, were called Rooks or Rakars, short, guttural words full of disdain. Words meant not to describe, but to condemn. Each of these names is a fragment of a greater map, one that exists not just on parchment, but in memory, in language, in the way the dwarves walked the world. With every step, they carved meaning into it. But even among all the words of Khuzdul, none carry more fury, more thunder than the battle cry spoken when dwarves charge into war. Baruk Khazâd, Khazad, ai-mênu, axes of the dwarves are upon you. It is more than a threat. It is a promise that stone remembers. In a world of magic and might, where dragons fly and kings rise and fall with the turn of an age, the greatest mysteries are often not written in fire or sung in prophecy. Sometimes they are etched in silence, hidden behind doors that do not open with force, but with reverence. The dwarves understood this. In the eastern face of the misty mountains, the Fellowship once stood before such a door. The doors of Durin hidden in plain sight, carved with Ithildin, visible only under starlight and moonlight. A boundary not just of stone, but of understanding. The riddle upon the arch spoke in Elvish, but its answer was simple. Say, friend, and enter. Yet beyond those doors lay something no Elvish spell or mannish sword could command, a kingdom built not just of rock and riches, but of memory, of pride, of secrets kept for thousands of years. The dwarves did not guard these secrets out of arrogance. They guarded them because they had to. For a people who multiplied slowly, each life was sacred. For a people who never remarried, each love was eternal. And for a people whose language barely changed over millennia, each word was sacred. When their halls fell, Khazad-dûm, Erebor, the Grey Mountains, the Blue, they did not just lose homes. They lost archives of who they were, names that would never be spoken again, voices silenced beneath rubble. And still, they endured. They moved forward, not by discarding the past, but by carrying it, quietly, stubbornly, unshakably, in memory, in stone, in song, sung only when the doors were closed and the fire was low. It is easy to overlook the dwarves in tales of grand magic and celestial wars. They do not bend the stars to their will, nor ride the winds of fate like others do, but there is a different kind of strength in them, one forged not in fire, but in time. It is the strength to protect, the strength to preserve, the strength to remain. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of all, not Khuzdul, not the hidden names, not the veiled women, or the sign language of smiths, but the quiet, immovable truth that the dwarves never forget. They are not just the children of the mountain. They are the mountain. If this journey through the hidden lore of the dwarves has sparked something in you, curiosity, wonder, or even the quiet thrill of discovery, consider joining us. Subscribe, follow, or simply stay a while. There are more doors to open, more legends buried in shadow, and more stories yet to be told. We'll see you in the next tale.